Episode number 200. So I don't know where you're listening to this, when you're listening to us. I don't even know if in the podcast order this is episode number 200 because maybe we put in some other episodes. But understanding that this is my 200th episode, my 200th live that I am doing, that I am recording, and it is pretty sweet. I'm so excited that I finally got here. And today we're talking about really just the consistency, the idea of how we could see that long-term success by being consistent. Because I think for somebody who has reached 200 downloads or really 200 of anything, there is some type of discipline there. There is some type of consistency that I would like to just share with other people, because people might see this and they're like, might be like, wow, but it's crazy. You did 200 lives or 200 podcasts. And that's like pretty nuts. And it's like, yeah, I guess so. It's pretty nuts in terms of, like, I think if if you do over 20 episodes, if you post 20 episodes on a podcast, great stat, by the way, then you're already in like the top 1%. And then if you post like 40 episodes, you're in the top 1% of the 1%, because most people just don't do it. And I think this is something that I saw yesterday. Also, I was watching, I checked out this new website that Mr. Beast recently put out. And Mr. Beast is a big YouTuber, and apparently he did this for himself, and then he ended up just sharing it with everybody. And it pretty much tells you rankings and whatnot. And I checked myself, like, where's my ranking on my YouTube channel? And I have just a little under 700 subscribers right now. And it was interesting because my ranking was in like 4,500s. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool, actually. The fact that I'm so I'm so high up. I thought there were like thousands and thousands of people like on YouTube, and I don't really have so many subscribers. Like, what's going on here? And I realized that it's the consistency. If you just stay with it, if you stick with it, things will start to happen. And whether, it is how it is when you started, most like the time, it's you keep going and you keep iterating and you keep changing and you keep seeing what's working. And by doing that, that enables you to see the success and to really take those growths. And you look at people's growth charts, really, in whether it's business or whether it's on their YouTube channel or their podcast, and you see like it's usually like very, very low. And then all of a sudden there's like a spike that goes up. And it's waiting for that spike. And the scary part is, like, you don't know when that spike's going to happen. You don't know when the success is going to happen. And I think if we can start to recognize it's not about when it's going to happen, it is about when it's going to happen, not about if it's going to happen. Because I think a lot of people get into certain disciplines and certain accomplishments that they really want, but then they're always asking themselves, like, is it really possible? Like, is it possible for me? And I think if you start to have that attitude, you put a little bit of self-doubt into your life and into the activity that you're looking to do. And as opposed to if, it's when, then I think that can start to really shift so much when it comes to the success that we want. And I think with this podcast journey as well, there were, when I first started, I had this goal. I'm like, I want to do podcasts. I really enjoy it. I really like sharing ideas. I like speaking to people, I like answering questions. And I thought, this could be a really cool way to be doing it. And it's only 15 minutes, usually between 15 and 20 minutes. When I first started, it was 10 minutes. I also want to get better at public speaking. So I thought maybe that would be a great opportunity for me to be able to just talk and to riff on different ideas for that time. And what I realized is that I wasn't really focused on the goal. It's not like I said, I want to have 1,000 episodes. It wasn't like I said, like, I want to have 200 episodes. Like, at first I was like, let me just like do it and see how things go. And then I was like, oh, I'm making some progress. And then I making some more progress, and then people are starting to listen, and it's like people are like thanking me for the episodes, and then all of a sudden people are starting to share the podcast, and I was like, whoa, this is actually pretty cool. That like it's actually going well. And then I hit 100 episodes, and I was like, wow, that is awesome. Like, that's a pretty cool goal. I think 100 was nicer than 200. And I was like so impressed with like hitting 100. I'm like, I got to do 200 now. And then I set the goal for 200. But when I set the goal for 200, it's not necessarily about the 200, and it's really about the daily do. And I think that's something that I think a lot of people have to realize when it comes to things that we want to be consistent with. We have to do the daily work. It's putting it in daily. Like, literally 200 times I've sat in front of my computer and I've spoken to it, not looking at anybody. Like, think about that. And if you do 200 times 15 minutes, let's say, that's like a lot of time. Go ahead and do it on a calculator. I know there's probably some math whizzes out there who can do it quickly. So 3,000 hours of me just talking camera. And this is like not including all my other content that I put out. And only recently did I start. Actually, no, I haven't even done that yet. I really recently I want to start, repurposing this content, but I haven't yet. So understanding that, like, if you want to be consistent, it's trying to figure out, okay, what is it that need to be doing, is that you're setting yourselves up for that success. And the least friction that you can have, that's going to be the thing that's going to help you be able to move forward. So whether it's in your businesses, in your relationships, we have to start to make the progress by doing the things that are going to be easy for us. We have to make it easy for us. It's like when you're on a diet, you know that you can't have ice cream in your freezer. If you have ice cream in your freezer, or you have cookies lying around, then guess what? It's going to be really difficult. But guess what? If you don't have it, then it's going to be a lot easier. And that's what we have to try to figure out. And that's what we have to try to see. So understanding that can be something that can be really just beneficial for us. So when you're picking something to do, we have to recognize that we have to be able to pick something that we do want to be doing and making it easy for ourselves. And I think also with goal setting, just in general, when we pick something like this, when we pick a consistency, we have to realize that it's not necessarily about the results. So it's not like I'm saying, oh, I want to get 1,000 people or 10,000 people to be listening to my episodes. That's not my goal. My goal is kind of just sit down in front of a computer for 10 minutes, riff, and try to get a little bit better every single time. And that is my goal. And then hopefully, and not even hopefully because I just caught myself, but eventually there will be a time where I'll be getting those 10,000 people listening because I'm doing it consistently and I'm putting myself out there. And that is something that we have to recognize, that we have to try to push forward with, because for so long, so many people want to be doing something and they want to see success, and they don't realize that success takes time. And that was probably one of the biggest shifts that I had. One of the hardest beliefs that I had to break about myself is that I wanted everything to be so quick. I was in such a rush. I wanted everything to happen today. And because of that, I really kept self-sabotaging myself. I kept messing myself up because I recognized that, you know what? If I can't get it today, then it's not worth it. I need to move on to the next thing. And that was something that was really difficult for me. I really recognize, hey, that's not cool. That's not something that I want to be doing. That is something that's really not going to be beneficial for me. And based on all the things I tried, I realized, hey, you know what? I really need to slow down a little bit. And giving myself a goal like this, regardless of what I'm doing, regardless of, I'm doing my coaching stuff, I'm doing my real estate stuff, I'm doing, I don't know, my other hobbies or writing books or whatever it is, if I could keep something consistent like this. And that's what I really want the podcast to be. I just want it to be that consistent anchor that regardless of what's happening in my life, I could sit down and I could do it. And that is something that was really powerful for me personally, because I know that if I just stick with this podcasting thing for a long time, then guess what? Something's going to happen. And that is something that for me personally is very, very exciting. So when it comes to consistency, we have to ask ourselves, what are those steps? What are those things that we can start to do for ourselves to allow ourselves to become successful? So number one, when we set our goals, we don't want to set a result-oriented goal. Or if we do set a result-oriented goal, we want it to be something that we can control. So for example, I want to be going on a live 5 times a week for 15 minutes. There's something that I can control. Me saying I want 10,000 people listening to me, I have zero control over 10,000 other people listening and tuning into my podcast. Right? I have no intention I have no ability to actually do that. I got to make it good. And then, okay, hopefully I can get that result. And that is something that we have to start to shift. So when we are making our goals, we have to realize that we have to set them to specific goals that we can control. Number two is that we have to recognize that we have to have as least friction as possible. So make it easy for you. For me, I have a mic that I just plug into my computer. I go on an app called StreamYard, plug everything in, help ChatGPT help me with the description and stuff, have my templates that I just post all over time and time again, and then I just put it on and go live. That's literally it. Maybe that sounded like a lot to you, but it's pretty simple. Ideally, I want somebody to be doing that. So I'll get to that point when somebody else is posting those things. But recognize, okay, it's 3 or 4 steps that I have to do. It takes me about 4.5 minutes. And then all I got to do is just press live and I got to speak. And that is something that I think is really important for us, because if it's something like I need to be setting up for 20 minutes and I need to be doing this and that, and then all of a sudden it's going to take forever. And even when I edit these episodes, and really what I'm just doing is I don't want to be doing intense editing, because I think it's more natural when you hear all the mistakes and the kids talking in the background and whatnot. But when I'm doing all the editing, what I realize is that I have to bash my time with that. So I'll edit 20 to 30 episodes at a time. I think I timed it one time. I think each episode, if I'm rushing, takes me about 5.5 minutes. Okay, so it's recognizing hey, what can I do to make this thing happen a lot quicker? And I think if we can start to do that, then all of a sudden we start to see that success. We make it easy for ourselves and we start to stay consistent. And now you might say, but Ben, let's say you don't have your mic, or let's say you're not really home. What are you supposed to do? So number one is I take my laptop with me. I take my mic with me. If I don't have my mic with me, guess what? I still do the episode, because it's more important to be consistent. I know with me personally that if I start to slack and take one day off, I know it could come bite me. And if I know there's a specific day that I'm not going to have my stuff with me, so then I try making it up on a Sunday or a Saturday night or something like that. Because I know that if I want to be consistent, if I want to have that success, then I'm going to have to pump out these episodes. and I'm going to have to do it regardless. So understanding that, and of course, are there days that it just didn't work out? Yeah, there are days that didn't work out, but recognizing that the days that it might be just tougher to do, like you have to do it. And I think a lot of times people get so stuck in having to be perfect. So for example, if I'm trying to make a 15-minute episode, I only have like 10 minutes to do a recording. So some people might be like, oh, I'm not going to do it. I'm like, let me just get the 10 minutes in. Like, it's more important to stay consistent. It's, I remember the first time that happened to me, where I realized that I was going to go on a run, and there's like this run that I usually do. It's like a 2-mile run. Usually the whole thing takes me about 25 minutes or so. Usually 20 minutes to run, and then like just cooling off and just chilling afterwards. But what I realized is that there was one time I wanted to run, but I only had like 15 minutes. I'm like, man, I can't do my run. So I like started heading back to my room. And what I realized is that, you know what, I don't have to run for 20 minutes. I could just do a shorter run. I did like an 8-minute run, and I got my a run in. And that consistency of doing that run was the thing that helped me stay forward and do more running. And that's something that I think is really powerful, because if we can start to recognize, hey, there are so many things that are going on. We have the ability to do something, even though it's not perfect. As long as we're making progress, stop getting rid of perfection, start becoming making more progress. That's the thing that we're looking for, because it's not supposed to be perfect. And what we have to do is we have to do, act, learn, tweak, and move forward and go on to the next one. So recognizing that is something that's really, really powerful. And I think for a lot of people, it's really tough to learn. It's really tough to go back. It's really tough to do something if it's not perfectly right. But my opinion, for certain things, I think for most things, maybe there's certain things that it's worth it to slow down. But for most things, it's in our benefit to just stay consistent, get the W, and then look to get the A+ the next day. And I know that's been tremendous with me, because if I would not have done that with a lot of my episodes, then guess what? I would not have been, I would not be where I am today. I would not be at 200 episodes. I'd probably, if I was still doing it, I'd probably be at like 130 something. But what we have to realize is like, no, we have to stay consistent. We have to stay with it. And that is something that is so powerful, I think, for so many people, because perfectionism kills so many dreams, and it hurts so many people. So if we can start to do it, that could be something that could really start to help us move forward. I think another thing also is that recognizing that when we do take the action, when we do the work that we're looking to do, we have to realize that just the sheer amount of numbers that we put into the thing that we're looking to do is going to make us better. So for me, example, if I didn't even if I wasn't being conscious about what it is what I wanted to get better at per episode, what I realized is that I probably would still be getting better, because I'll just be getting more comfortable. I literally remember the first night that I went live. I think it was on Instagram. I went live. This is not part of the series of my podcast. I went live, and I remember I was freaking out. I was like sweating profusely beforehand. I was so nervous. I'm like, the whole world's going to see me and this and that. And I remember I think I was in bed already. And then I got so pumped up, and I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm going to go live. And I ran to my office, put on a sweatshirt or something. And I ended up going live on Instagram for 3 minutes. I don't even know what I spoke about. Probably just about how I'm going live for the first time. And of course, nobody watched it. But for me, that was such a big game changer. That was such a game changer for me to step into what it is that I wanted to be stepping into. It was such a big game changer for me to finally say, hey, I'm doing this thing even though I'm nervous. And guess what? I'm not really nervous. Sometimes it's very difficult for me to prepare right until the episode itself. And I still got to speak for 15 minutes, which is a nice challenge for me. And recognizing, hey, you know what? I had these skills regardless of what happens. Sometimes my screen has frozen. My kid would burst in. You can't really plan for all these things. And what we have to do is we have to realize, okay, what's the confidence that we can do to ourselves? So for right now, when I'm on a live, I'm extremely comfortable. When I do my LinkedIn live episodes with other people, what ends up happening a lot of times is that people feel so uncomfortable. And I get it. It's nerve-wracking. But I just feel such a calm. So when I am a guest on other people's podcasts, that too, it's people are just people are so whoa, you were so calm with that. It's I literally do this every single day. I'm going to be calm. I'm just going to be in my element. This is literally what I speak about every single day. So I think it's something that it's really important for us that if there is something that you want to get good at, if there's something that you want to be consistent with, if you can look back a year from now and say, I'm so happy I did X, Y, and Z. What is that thing? It could be going on a run every single day. It could be writing in your journal. And maybe it's not even every day. Maybe it's once a week, but that's your goal. And we'll leave off with this expectation piece, because I think for so many people, they get so frustrated because they have such a wrong expectation. An expectation, I believe, is the number one killer for our own self-doubt, our own self-belief. Because for some reason, we have this expectation in our minds that we should be doing X, Y, and Z. And because we have this certain expectation, and most of the time we don't meet it, what ends up happening is that we end up just beating ourselves up. We end up pushing ourselves out of the way. What we have to realize is like it's on us to like make something happen. It's on us to shift that expectation, because of our expectation that it's going to be extremely easy and there's nothing's going to happen that's going to throw you off your schedule, and everything's going to be working. You're always going to have internet and everything's going to be a perfect setup. That you're literally just setting yourself up for failure. And what we have to realize is that it's for ourselves, that if we have the wrong expectations, when things do go wrong, we're going to get even more frustrated and more upset. And that's the thing that we have to recognize. It's like we have to push ourselves. We have to become and make ourselves into the person that we want. And I think for so many people, they get so annoyed and so down just because their expectation is wrong. And if we could just start to be consistent, if we could just start to say to ourselves, hey, I want to do this thing. I want to test it out. Don't even commit to it. Just say, hey, I want to play around with this thing. And that's what I did with this live. And then momentum starts building. And all of a sudden, 200 episodes later, you're looking back. You're like, it's pretty dope. Pretty sweet. And hopefully I'll be looking back at 1,000. And if I'm not back at 1,000, I'm hoping that I made a conscious choice. Like, you know what? I don't want to be doing this anymore. But regardless, I don't want to be doing it because I was either lazy. I don't want to not do it because I thought that, it's, I'm wasting my time, I'm just not being consistent enough. And then all of a sudden I'm just going to quit. Like that stuff will kill me. If I say, it's really not worth my time. And, I got out what I got out of it. I'll have a couple hundred episodes and like people can listen to those and, they can find what they need. Okay, great. But I think we all have to understand, like, what is that we're doing for ourselves? How is it that we're going to be making it for ourselves? And how is it that we could become and do the things that we want to be doing? Because at the end of the day, we all have a list of stuff we want to be doing. Small and big, some silly for other people, some there's like a really big deal. And we have to realize that as long as we can stay consistent with it, as long as we can start to do what it is that we want to be doing, then all of a sudden, eventually we'll get there. But it has to be, and it starts with consistency and discipline. And if we can start with that, that could be something that could be really beneficial. All right, let me know what your favorite highlights are of any of the episodes, maybe tonight's episode, but just in general, if you have been listening to the podcast, make sure to share and to like. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe as well. It really is just helpful and gives me the strength to continue going. So if you do get any benefit, feel free to send this over to somebody. It can be something that can be extremely beneficial. All right, everybody, peace out. Have a great night.